Today, we're looking at the 5 proofs for God's existence. We're going to debunk them and show that they actually hold a much deeper truth that's been twisted by the church that has to do with your place in the universe and reveals something about all of us that is extremely deep and extremely important. So these proofs for God are ones that I was, taught growing up as well. Because for those who don't know, I grew up in a strict Christian household. So these were proofs for God presented to me as well. But I'm going to show you how these are actually very important attributes of reality in the universe, but they have been twisted for a particular religious agenda. And we're going to be taking a look at all of these right now. It's going to be good. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you, if you enjoy my work, hey, consider supporting over on Patreon. It's the best way to support my work, and you get access to all of our members-only videos, and there's a new members-only video every single week. The members-only video that's coming out right after this video is social media destroying your mind, as we talk about digital addiction, which is going to be really important because it's something that's happening extremely quickly and it's very widespread. I'm sure many of you watching this are affected by it in some way or another. So that's what we're talking about in the members only video. You can get access to that by joining any tier on Patreon or tier 2 or higher on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video. Let's see. Please like and subscribe, of course, as always. Watch out for scammers in the comments, people pretending to be me, saying join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram. That's not me. Don't fall for it. There are people in groups out there who don't like what I'm doing, who don't like what we're doing, and are spreading a lot of misinformation and disinformation about me and all of us. So use logic, use reason, use your head. Don't fall for the BS. All right, here we go. So we're taking a look at the 5 proofs for God's existence. And what we're going to do, we're bringing this up right now. So this is on a website that says, Is God Real? Proofs for God's Existence. It says there is strong evidence for the existence of God. We're going to seek to answer this question, is God real? We're going to look at 5 proofs of God's existence. Now, this is by a website called lwf.org. I don't know what this website is, but I would imagine that it is a religious website. And I would guess that LWF stands for Living Waters Fellowship. I'm curious, does it? I'm super curious. Let me see. I just want to know what it stands for. I would guess that it's Living Waters Fellowship. What is LWF? It's not telling me. Okay, I don't know. The name is lwf.org, but nowhere does it say what L. How fulfilled or at peace do you feel in life? I'm barely surviving. Don't give up. There is hope. We want to help. What is going on in your life? I'm not sure if I'm really a Christian. You don't have to live in doubt. God desires for you to have an abundant life with peace and assurance. Visit our resource page to learn how to receive Christ and find life and peace. Ooh, okay. How do I do it? I'm just doing this randomly. I didn't plan on doing this. I don't know what any of this is. Birthmarks of the true. Okay, well, you lost me here. These are just too many links. I don't know what you're trying to tell me here. Okay, go away. No, 7 minutes, 7 days. What could happen? Are you willing to spend 7 minutes a day for the next 7 days to explore that question? What? What question? To explore what question? 7 minutes, 7 days. What could happen? Do I want to spend the next 7 minutes a day for the next 7 days exploring what could happen? That's very broad. No, not really. I mean, okay. I just want to know what LWF stands for. Please. Please, for the love of Jesus. What does LWF stand for? Love worth finding. Okay, I thought it was Living Waters Fellowship. Love worth finding. Okay. So, anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. On this website, loveworthfinding.org, or lwf.org rather, they're saying that proofs for God's existence. Now, these are proofs for God's existence that I was presented growing up, and they're very common proofs for God's existence. Now, what we're going to see is that some of these proofs are actually true in some degree, but they've been twisted. So let's just jump into this and start exploring right away. Now, I'll tell you, so it starts off by saying, so is there proof that God is real? So it says, proof 1, Jesus. Now, hey, look, listen here. I promise the other the other proofs are going to be more interesting than the first one. The first one is pretty lame. So we'll look at the first one, but remember, the rest are better. So the first proof is that Jesus, you know that meme with the guy that goes aliens? It's like, I feel like that's Jesus. It's just proof. You want proof? You got it. Jesus. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now I can be sure. The greatest proof of God is real is Jesus Christ. Multiple times he claimed to be God. Obviously, claiming to be God doesn't make a person God. No. Many people have claimed divinity over the years, but unlike the others, Jesus actually backed up his claim. As you read through the first 4 books of the New Testament, one thing becomes very clear. Jesus was no ordinary man. He did incredible, extraordinary supernatural things. He transformed water into wine. He fed thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread and a fish. He healed a paralyzed man. He gave sight to the blind. He healed those with leprosy. He raised from the dead, and much, much, much more. The most extraordinary thing Jesus did was rise from the dead himself. He told his disciples multiple times that he was going to die and rise from the dead. Then everything happened. Okay, so look, the argument here is that God is real because Jesus was a Marvel comic book hero. So the problem with this, of course, like I said, this one's not very good. Obviously, this is a very bad proof because you using the Bible to prove that essentially the God of the Bible is true is kind of self-defeating. It's kind of like saying, well, the Bible says he's God, so then of course God must exist. Look, there is no proof that Jesus did any of these things. There is no proof whatsoever that Jesus Christ did any of these things. When you look at the Bible reads way more like a Shrek story than it does any kind of valid record of what actually happened. You have talking donkeys, you have talking snakes. Okay, there's only one talking donkey and one talking snake, but there is a talking snake and a talking donkey. There's people being raised from the dead. There's, food coming from the heavens, and just there's a lot of crazy stuff in the Bible. So claiming that proof that God is real because Jesus did miracles is not very good proof. It's not very good evidence. Even if he did, let's say he did. Let's say that Jesus did do these things. Is this proof that he's God? No. How do you know that he's not an alien? How do you know he's not an evil being that is trying to trick humanity into thinking that he is God? And of course, this might seem far-fetched, but the whole thing is far-fetched. If you're starting to talk about a guy who's raising himself from the dead and turning water into wine and healing people and feeding people by multiplying fishes and loaves, that's already pretty out there. So how do you know it's not some other type of malevolent being or an alien or some other supernatural force? You don't know. So this is a bad one. I think we can pretty much move on from this one. This is clearly not very good proof. It's not very good evidence. It's relies on things that cannot be verified. So now it starts to get a little more interesting here. So proof 2, the universe. A second proof that God is real is the design of the universe. Everywhere we look, there is evidence of orderly, intelligent design. The planets orbit the sun, held in place by gravity. Sun keeps the earth warm, enough to sustain life without scorching everything. Rain causes plants to grow, and the plants provide food for animals. It's a beautifully ordered system. So here's the argument here is the argument for design, or the argument from design, and it's basically if you exhibit and see. And you look at the world, you look around you, and you see, well, the world seems to behave in an orderly, systematic sort of pattern. And this is a pretty powerful one. This is one Christians go to a lot, and I was presented with it, and it's a pretty powerful one. And it's the idea, well, because the universe exhibits order and structure, there must be a God to have ordered and structured the world. And so this is a big argument. Well, God must exist because we look around, we see order and structure. There must be some being that imbued the world with this order and structure. Well, here's the thing that's missing here. This does not prove that there is a God. It just proves that order and structure is inherent to reality. Now, if you think about our position in the Neogenian system, our position is that this is a mathematical reality of mind. So in our system, reality is order and structure itself. It's a mathematically structured system that is constantly transforming and exploring its various internal patterns. So if reality itself is a system of mathematics or a system of reason, a self-transforming system of energy, you don't need a cosmic being to imbue structure and order into the world. Structure and order is inherent within the system itself already. We are beings of mathematical energy patterns that are ordering and structuring itself and looking to higher order patterns. So what this shows isn't that there is a God, much less the God of the Bible. Even if this did prove, let's say this did prove that a God existed, it doesn't prove the God of the Bible. It proves that there's structure and order in the universe. It doesn't prove that, oh, well, there's a God that created the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh and flooded the world and all these other things that come along with it. That doesn't say anything about that. Nothing. It says nothing. It just says there's order and structure in the world. Now, guess what? When you look around the world, what else does it show? It shows that if this was intelligently designed, it was poorly designed. If you look at the body, there are a lot of aspects of the body that are very poor designs. If you look at where you use the bathroom and also procreate or enjoy sexual activities, obviously putting those two things close together is not a good idea. There's just a lot of things about the body and just about the world in general and just about that is not well designed at all. However, if you look at the universe as being a structured pattern that is exploring its different transformations and patterns and coming to higher transformations and patterns, well, then this makes sense because it's an evolutionary spiraling system that's improving itself and transforming itself. So you're going to get, you're going to go from less structure to more structure and more structure. I mean, look at as humanity evolves, we start imbuing more order and more structure on the world. So you have the system of structure that is structuring itself, and ultimately this is what we are. So ultimately, this does show the existence of a structured and ordered system, not like the God of the Bible. Remember, in our system, we are God, all of us together. We are the absolute. We are experiencing ourselves through our own world that we have generated unconsciously, just like we have kind of generated a world when we go to sleep and dream. We unconsciously generated this world at the moment of the Big Bang. The moment of the Big Bang was the beginning of this collective experience that we're having together that was generated unconsciously. It wasn't intelligently designed or anything like this. So now it's a structure of pattern that is organizing itself, which is us, and we're able to experience this pattern through ourselves. And so this is why reality exhibits pattern, because reality is reflective of its own essence, which is mathematical pattern, which is rational pattern. So anyway, saying that God is real because everywhere things are ordered doesn't prove that the God of the Bible is real. It proves that the world is ordered. And the fact that there are things that aren't structured very well shows that things were not. It's likely that things were not intelligently designed if things were structured in a very poor fashion. But it keeps going. The stars and the planets declare that there is a God who created and ordered all things. No, it doesn't. The intricate workings of the universe point to the God who put everything into place. No, it doesn't. The human body is an absolute marvel. Look at any part of the body and you are confronted with evidence of God. Really? Yeah? Yeah? Any part? You really? I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe you need to spend some time with a mirror and realize there aren't some not so pretty places. Let's see. The order and excellence of the human body are not the result of accidental evolution. Order and beauty don't accidentally spring from chaos. Okay, so order and beauty do not come from chaos, but order can come from within itself and increase in order. You can have an increase in order. You can have negative entropy. You can have entropy. You can have different, depends how one defines order. Depending on how one defines order, I don't really want to get to that because that gets into entropy, and entropy is such a misunderstood topic. Entropy is usually thought to mean that the universe is, that disorder is increasing. That's actually not true. That's a misunderstanding of what entropy is. Entropy has to do with the number of available states that the system can take. Let's not get into that. That would veer off into a whole nother direction. But the point is that seeing that there is structure and order to the world does not point to intelligent design. It points to the fact that it points to the fact that order and structure are in the world, and that comports completely with how we understand reality as a structured, living system of frequency, energy, mathematical structure, rational structure that is evolving and transforming, not from chaos, but from its own internal structure, finding higher and higher patterns. There is no such thing as true chaos. True chaos is not something that exists. There are different degrees of order. You can have things that appear chaotic, like in chaotic systems, like in the butterfly effect and chaos theory in mathematics. But these aren't, even chaos theory and mathematics are dependent on initial conditions and are deterministic systems, ultimately. It's not actually chaos. Anyway, let's continue. Proof 3, human longing. The existence of a particular desire within us is evidence of the existence of that thing. For example, the desire for food proves that food exists. We love sunshine because I'm sorry, these explanations are just so silly. We love sunshine because the sun is real, and feeling the sun on our faces makes us happy. We don't desire things that don't exist. Really? How many of you desire I think a unicorn would be pretty cool. How about a unicorn? I desire a unicorn. I get what they're saying. I understand what they're saying, but it doesn't hold up though. It's wrong. The longings we feel point to realities outside of us. Now, this is true. This is true, but not for the reasons that they say. The longings we feel do point to realities outside of us. So we have realities outside of us, and keep in mind, like this, I'm poking fun here. And look, the reason why I'm poking fun is because I used to be Christian. I grew up in a strict Christian household, and for those who don't know, I was Christian for a long time, many years, and I have religious trauma syndrome, RTS, and so this stuff is like kind of triggering in a way. And so humor is a way to diffuse it, I think. It's one of those things that I don't know. You approach it's not as though I'm just some outside observer looking at these arguments from some removed standpoint. I grew up with these things and they're very silly. And so I can't help but poke fun at it. But in essence, what is the essence here? The longings we feel point to realities outside of us. Yes, we do have a longing for a reality outside of us. Yeah, we do. Most of us do. I don't know if all of us do, but most of us do. Is this proof for something? No, it's not proof for something. However, it's evidence that there could be something, and we know that there is. So it points to realities outside of us. It says every person longs for the transcendent, that which is outside space and time. We all want to experience something bigger than ourselves. And the thing is that the reason why that we feel this, the reason why that we have this intuition is because we are beings that are non-local, immaterial beings of frequency that have localized into human avatars to experience the holos, what we consider to be space and time. So we're in this realm of space and time confined to localized bodies. What does localization mean? Well, you can think of an easy way to understand localization as kind of like location. Things are based on location. I am here, you are over there. There's up, there's down, there's left, there's right, there's 15 feet that way, there's 6 seconds in a direction. If we're thinking of time as directions, we are looking at different coordinate systems that define where we are. So we've been localized. We've been confined. But this confinement's not necessarily a bad thing. It allows us to experience. If you're playing a video game, you need your avatar to be able to exist in a particular location to play that game. So because we exist in particular locations and particular bodies, we can have contingent experiences with one another that are beautiful and productive. Hopefully, we can also have bad experiences, and a lot of humans do because they're not very nice. But we can have beautiful experiences with one another because of these localizations. However, yeah, we have this innate feeling of there being more because we're much more than this. We're much more than our bodies. We're much more than our avatars. We are eternal beings of mind. So just because we have a yearning for a transcendent state doesn't automatically point to the God of the Bible. Did you see how? Let's say that we could say these proofs are true. What these proofs would do is point to the existence of a God. And saying that God is the God of the specific Christian religion of the Bible, who created the earth in 6 days and, flooded the world and commanded all the children of Egypt to be killed and accepted a burnt virgin sacrifice, Jephthah's daughter. And do you see the big leap that's going there? You have these proofs, and let's say, these proves that a God exists. It doesn't prove that God. It proves that there is a transcendent ordering force. A transcendent ordering force may not even be conscious. It might not have thoughts. And of course, in our system, we are God. So we are that transcendent ordering force, but we are order itself. We are transcendent order. And we are experiencing our various transformations, our various patterns. We are thrusting ourselves into the experience of our own domain. We are gods. So think about it. Why would God create anything? Why would God create anything? If God knows everything, is everything, it'd be pretty boring, wouldn't it? Just to create something that you already know what's going to happen and watch it, and you're going to torture people for a little bit if they don't believe in this really obscure thing that, that doesn't really seem very godly, does it? It seems very strange, seems very fairy tale-ish. But think what would as God, what would we do? Well, we would forget that we are God and shatter ourselves so that we can have the experience of exploring our creation through ourselves, to go through the thrill and the understanding of knowing ourselves from that internalized perspective. So anyways, the purpose of creation is for God to experience its creation. In other words, our self-generation of the universe is for us to explore ourselves within that dream world that we have generated from ourselves, from our internal frequency patterns, which are sinusoidal waveforms, which are projected through an interference pattern to form this world, which you can think of as an internally projected hologram of sorts. But it's very solid. Due to the fact that this is not like a hologram like you see on TV. I use that word loosely, but it works in a very similar way, dealing with projections from an interference pattern, because all reality is waveforms. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. And if you want to know more, by the way, this is what I'm talking about is the Neogenian system. So we're Neogenians. We are here to create a new humanity, a new earth, to create a new beginning, because the world needs a neogenesis. The world needs a new beginning. It needs a new system, because humanity is falling apart. But we're evolving to a new consciousness where we're beginning to understand what we are, where we are, and why we're here. We're beginning to understand that, hey, guess what? God isn't something outside of us, it's within us. And we are here to understand that and unlock that. And that's the true teachings of Christ, by the way. The Christianity is a false light. Christianity has the false teachings of Christ. The true teachings of Christ have to do with looking within and realizing that we are God, that we are the sons of the living Father. I don't like putting it that way because it's very gender specific, but I'm just quoting something. But we are gods. Anyway, The desire for the transcendent was what motivates us to seek thrills. The problem is that our longing for transcendence won't be satisfied by anything in the world. No matter how much money we make or thrills we experience or power we attain, we won't be satisfied. Why can't we find satisfaction? Because we were made for God. Well, I don't mind. You like that? You want to be made for God? I don't know about. We were made to know and love God. In his book Confessions, Augustine famously said to God, "Thou hast formed us for thyself, and our hearts are restless till they find rest in thee." The deep longing and restlessness we feel so often points to the reality of God. Just as hunger leads us to food and thirst to water, our longing for transcendence ultimately leads to God. Our longing for transcendence stems from the fact that, guess what? We are transcendent beings. We are internally transcendent. We are ourselves are transcendent. That's why we have a longing for the transcendent. Not because we're looking from some external outside transcendent force, but because we are, by our very own nature, transcendent beings. We desire to know ourselves. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods, because we are the universe and we are the gods. So this understanding or longing for transcendence is not rooted in anything external. It's rooted into our internal nature. So, proof 4, logic. A fourth proof that God is real is logic. Well, you haven't been using it very well in this article, but let's see what you have to say. We live in a cause and effect universe. Literally nothing happens without a cause. So it depends what one means by cause. Nothing happens without reason, and that is true. That's a little different than cause, but everything must have a reason for why it exists in the way that it does rather than another way. And cause is often part of that, and it just depends what someone means by causality. Some people take causality to mean like physical determinism, and that's not necessarily the case. But for the most part, we could say loosely that is true. Again, this article is very sloppy, so we're being very, very loose with lots of things. I would not say that everything necessarily relies on cause and effect. I would say that everything relies on the principle of sufficient reason, which is that for everything that exists, there must be a reason for why it exists in the way that it does rather than another way. Everything must be rationally ordered. We could usually loosely consider that cause and effect, depending on how one defines cause and effect. Anyways, even the most seemingly random events can be traced back to a definite source. Whenever something happens, we try to figure out what caused it. The universe could not come into existence out of nothing. Both science and experience tell us that something cannot come from nothing. Something that already existed must have caused the universe to exist. That something is God. Okay, let me take a sip here. Do you see the leaps that are being taken? Everything has to have a cause. Something must have existed to cause the universe. That something is God. Problem right there. Stop. Hold on. Wait. Why? What do you mean that something is God? No. Something must exist to have caused the universe. Sure. That something is God? You have made quite a big leap there. To say that something is the God of the Bible that created with all these different attributes that created Adam and Eve and didn't like the talking snake and did you know, according to the Bible or according to Christianity, a lot of Christianity, the snake used to have legs, and in the Bible it says God cursed the snake to crawl on its belly for the rest of its days. And according to Christianity, that's why snakes don't have legs. This is all very silly. Come on, guys. Like, this is all really, really silly stuff. This didn't happen. This stuff did not happen. This is like a Shrek story. Come on. Okay, so to say that something must have caused the universe, absolutely sure. To say that something is God, specifically the God of the Bible, is an enormous extrapolation. Huge leap of logic. You skipped quite a number of steps there. So Um, so what about, all this says is the Big Bang must have had some sort of reason for it to occur. And I agree, absolutely. To say that is the God of the Bible is absolutely wrong. So, well, what caused the Big Bang? Well, we can't say that it proves the existence of the God of the Bible. Absolutely not. Well, what about in our system? In our system, this is a reality of mind. This is a reality of mathematical mind, mathematical frequency patterns. The state prior to the Big Bang was when everything existed as pure mind and there was no physical reality. So, in essence, what that means is that prior to the Big Bang, there wasn't non-existence. There was still existence. It just was not a material existence. There was no material universe. It was a mental existence. It was a state of perfect unity and perfect identity. Just pure mind. Now, like I said before, and remember, our system, the Neogenian system, is quite complex. So I can't go into all the details here. So I'm simplifying it quite a lot. But at that point, when everything was pure mind, what we did as a collective that was in perfect identity, acting as one, shattered ourselves, so to speak, to generate the material world. So mathematically speaking, what this has to do is sinusoidal waveforms going from in phase to out of phase. Because what happens is you have a frequency domain and you have a space-time domain. When you are in the frequency domain and everything is perfectly aligned, perfectly in harmony, perfectly in phase, there is nothing in the space-time domain. Its projection is nothing. When you take those frequencies and alter them by introducing phase, what happens and is reflected in the space-time domain is extension. Extension occurs. So you can kind of think of the space-time domain as like the shadow of the frequency domain. It's the projection of the frequency domain. And the frequency domain, the domain of mind, can exist in such a state, such a pattern in identity where it does not cast a shadow. So there is no space-time domain. But when it alters its pattern, it creates an interference pattern, which projects a space-time domain, which was the moment of the Big Bang. So the moment of the Big Bang was not the beginning of something out of nothing for no reason, and it wasn't the creation of the God of the Bible casting his magic spell. It was the moment that a system of mathematical symmetry broke symmetry. And when it broke symmetry, breaking symmetry introduces extension and difference and in experiential space-time domain as a projection of those frequency patterns. So, and by the way, one would perhaps ask, well, what preceded that? We live in a cyclical reality. So what happens is where we are headed to right now is that state of identity once again. So we're in a state of evolution and transformation, and we have a lot more of the universe and reality to experience. We're just getting started. We're barely in the survival phase. But as we continue to evolve and transform and grow, we'll become more and more aligned. And at the end of time, we will reach that state again where we are in perfect identity and perfect unity and perfect harmony. And then there is no more space-time universe. So anyways, we go towards this singularity and there is no space-time universe, because our patterns are perfectly aligned. Then those patterns become misaligned by introducing phase, and then the Big Bang occurs. So you basically go from, the Big Bang back to a singularity of mind, to a Big Bang, to a singularity of mind. So you go through this cyclical pattern of unity and separation, unity and separation, unity. So what preceded the Big Bang was a state of perfect mind. What preceded that state of perfect mind was a previous universe, and the previous to that universe was a state of perfect mind, and this is cyclical. This is cyclical. And the reason why that this works, and this is okay logically, is because there is nothing illogical about a circle. A circle is a logical pattern. A circle is a pattern that is logically consistent and coherent and complete. So we live in a cyclical reality, and yes, there was a cause for the Big Bang. The cause for the Big Bang was not God. It's a big leap to say. All you can say is that something must have happened for the Big Bang to occur. And in our system, what that thing is a mathematical system going from asymmetry to symmetry. You can imagine it like, where's my Rubik's Cube? I don't know. I usually have a Rubik's Cube here. I don't know why I don't. If you imagine a Rubik's Cube, imagine symmetry being a solved Rubik's Cube. And then, scrambling that Rubik's Cube as being introducing phase relations and asymmetry to the mathematical system. So you can kind of think of it like a Rubik's Cube that goes from being solved to being scrambled to being solved to being scrambled to being solved to being scrambled, where we exist in a perfect mathematical structured system that goes from unity to separation, in phase to out of phase, many different ways to discuss it. It's basically being that we exist in this harmonious reality that can exhibit different structured patterns. Anyway, before the universe existed, God existed. He is the first cause. Everything exists because of him. The fact that there is a universe at all points to the fact that God is real. If God did not exist, nothing else would exist. So these are all just claims. These are all just these are just words that they are saying that are not true. Something must have caused the universe to exist. Yes, that something is God. That's a leap in logic. If you're claiming that God is defined as the God of the Bible, that's a huge leap. That's extremely fallacious. No. It just shows that something must have caused the Big Bang. Which, yeah, of course. Of course. And our system supports that perfectly. It's a system of reason. So, proof 5, morality. Another proof for God's existence is the existence of morality. Every person, regardless of culture or upbringing, has a sense of right and wrong. We know that it's wrong to take another person's life or to steal their belongings. Every society has a justice system responsible for upholding right and punishing wrongdoing. If a criminal escapes justice, we're outraged. Where does this innate sense of right and wrong come from? It comes from God. We all know that some things are right and some things are wrong because God has instilled those things into us. Our sense of good and evil comes from the God who is good and who opposes evil. By the way, this God who is good and opposes evil drowned the entire world except for one family. Think about that. Now, again, these stories didn't happen. He didn't actually do it. But if you're pretending that these stories are true, does that sound like a God of love who would drown pregnant women, children, totally innocent beings, the entire world except for one family? This being also accepted burnt virgin sacrifice, Jephthah's daughter. This being also had the firstborn children of Egypt, all the firstborn children of Egypt, innocent children, killed. Does this sound like a moral, just, good, and loving God to you? By the way, this is also the God that allows individuals to be tortured in hell for eternity. No second chances. Does this sound like a God of love to you? So, if God does not exist, there's no such thing as ultimate right or wrong. No one can claim that anything is true or bad. The existence of morality points to the existence of God, not that there would be no morality. Now, this is also, even if we're looking at this logic, this is also greatly skewed. There is a huge disparity between what people consider right and wrong. It depends. It's not universal. It depends on culture. It depends on time in history. It depends on so many different faculties. It's cultural, it's historical, and it, if we just think of one, for example, I'm vegan. I think that it is wrong. I don't want to get into a debate on morality. So remember, I'm being very, very loose here because these are very loose arguments. So I'm forced to kind of be that way. Those who are vegan view it as wrong to kill animals just to have something to eat if you don't have to. If you can eat, if you can get your diet somewhere else and animals don't have to suffer, why should animals suffer? So for me, I don't think that one should kill animals just for food or a fur coat or something like that. However, there's lots of people who think that that's perfectly fine. In fact, in Christianity, And I was taught this, by the way, because my family was hunters. I grew up at a portion of my life in Montana, and my family was hunters. So you'd open up the garage and there would literally be hanging from the ceiling of the garage skinned deer corpses. It looked like something out of the movie from Predator, and the stench was just horrendous. So we had deer carcasses hanging in our garage, skinned deer carcasses hanging in our garage. And so I grew up in a family of hunters, and that was a big part of that culture. And the excuse given was that, well, in the Bible it says that animals are, what did they say? That animals are, I forget exactly what it is. It's been a long time since I've looked at this, but essentially that animals are for us to use however we want, basically. So the Bible is often used to justify what I consider to be cruelty to animals, because the Bible says that animals are to be used however humans want, basically. That animals are ours to do with what we want. Now, by the way, real quick, I want to say, to be Neogenian, you don't have to be vegan. You don't have to be vegan to be Neogenian. We're focusing on liberating humanity. However, that is something that's very important to me, and we at least ask that you look into it and consider why we consider it to be important, because we want to reduce all unnecessary suffering in the world. But anyway, just want to put that out there. You don't have to be vegan to be Neogenian, but it's something that I support very much, and we at least say that you look into it. But that's just one example. Because I bet many people probably in the comment sections of this video will argue if it's right or wrong to have animals for food or not. And that shows you right there that morality is not universal. And there are so many more instances of this where some things are considered right or wrong across various cultures, across various belief systems, across various times in history. And the Bible is not any kind of source for moral or ethical guidance in the modern world that says homosexuals should be killed, that women are less than men and must be quiet and submit to their husbands in everything, and that they're inherently sinful for having eaten from the apple first, and can be saved through childbearing. There are plenty of verses in the New Testament and Old Testament that support slavery. It says that the slave should obey the master just as they would obey Christ. The Bible was actually used to try and propagate or to argue for slavery. The Bible is not a good moral compass whatsoever. So to argue for morality for the existence of the God of the Bible, who is a genocidal murderer, if God were real, the God of the Bible were real, he would have destroyed more people, more innocent human lives than the most evil maniac to have ever existed in history. He literally wiped out the entire world population except for one family. And there's mountains of killings in the in the Bible that are either done directly by this God or had the blessing from this God. There's verses about ripping pregnant women open. There's verses about when you conquer another nation, about taking their women. It's horrible. So don't talk to me about morality, please. So let's see. Is God real? Yes, he is. Oh, okay. If you have questions about God, don't stop until you get answers. The truth is that God wants you to know him, and then blah, 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 blah about Jesus, and get a Bible and read about God, blah, 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 blah. So the idea here is that when you take a look at these proofs for God, and some of these are ridiculous, like saying that Jesus created because Jesus turned water into wine, he must be God. No. I mean, by that logic, then Neo must be the one, because wow, look what Neo did. No, it's just a story. So, but some of the other ones, such as The physical universe requiring a cause, or at least a reason for its existence. Absolutely. That reality exhibits structure and order. Absolutely. And that we have a yearning for the transcendent. That's a little more of an intuitive, like the other ones we could show logically, like, yes, these are pretty good arguments. The longing one, that's a little more, that's interesting evidence, but it's nothing that could prove certainly. It's interesting evidence though. But anyway, none of these things point to the existence of the God of the Bible. Order and structure points to the fact that order and structure must be imbued in the world. Longing for the transcendent just possibly points to the fact that there is a transcendent order, and that the universe must have had a cause or a reason just points to the fact that the universe must have had a cause or a reason. None of these things point to God. Now, in our system, perfectly accounts for all of these things as being a system of mathematical frequency patterns that is structure and order itself, and that is inherently transcendent, and that creates various transformations, and that through the varying of its internal frequency patterns generated the space-time universe. So our system accounts for all these things. We are the transcendent order that generated the space-time universe. We are God. You don't have to use the word God. I don't like using the word God. We are the absolute. We are the absolute. What is the absolute? The absolute is a structured network mind. Every single one of us is an eternal mind. What is an eternal mind? An eternal mind is a system, a being of frequency patterns. Mathematically speaking, it's a full and consistent set of Fourier basis waves, sinusoidal waveforms. Together, this is what we are. We form this reality, and we are experiencing this reality through our various transformations by exploring our various patterns that take on when we transform ourselves by altering the phase relations of these frequency patterns. These frequency patterns form an interference pattern. When you form an interference pattern, you get a projection. That projection is a space-time universe. You can think of it like a hologram. When you have a hologram, you have a holographic plate. You have the source beam. You shine the source beam on the holographic plate. The holographic plate has an interference pattern on it, and because the source beam, the light waveforms through that interference pattern, project the illusion of a dimensional reality. So we're all in this internal dimensional reality generated by us. So case in point here, some of these are very, very silly. The Jesus one, ridiculous. The transcendent order one, interesting. A yearning for transcendent, interesting, but not necessarily, logically sound in a strict deductive way. One couldn't really put it in a sense like that. The morality one, no, that one is trash as well, especially if you're trying to predicate that on a bloodthirsty monster being the source of that morality. That's mind-blowingly bad. And then the universe having a cause and there being an order, a structured order, does not point to the God of the Bible. It points to that the world must have a transcendent, inherent, structured order that caused the universe. And that's perfect, and that's totally fine. Absolutely. But it does not prove that God exists. In fact, we can very easily prove that God doesn't exist. I have a video. Go check it out. I have a video called 100% Proof That God Does Not Exist. Check it out. Watch it. You can prove that God does not exist. You can look at the attributes of God and see that they contain an internal contradiction. The God of the Bible, an all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God that allows souls to be tortured for eternity, is an internal contradiction. That being cannot exist. It is impossible for an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God to allow souls to be tortured for eternity. That is not possible. It's an internal logical contradiction. This being cannot exist. Thus, God does not exist. The God of the Bible. Now, do you see the difference here? I am specifically designating the God that I am critiquing. I am specifically saying the God of the Bible. What attributes does this being have? All-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, everywhere, all-powerful, all-knowing, and also the attribute of allowing souls to be tortured in hell for eternity. See, these are the very specific attributes of a very specific God. And then you show a logical internal contradiction. And you could pick so many more. besides just sending hells to having souls be tortured for eternity. I know that there's the whole, don't even get me started on, you could pick so many more. Accepting Jephthah's burnt daughter as a sacrifice, killing all the firstborn children of Egypt, flooding humanity with all the innocent children, and all of these things contain inherent logical contradictions with a God that is supposedly all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving. It cannot be. So that is falsified. That God cannot exist 100%. Now, notice, like I said, I picked a very specific God and examined those attributes. Notice they're doing the opposite. They're not picking anything specific. They're being extremely general. They're saying, oh, there is structure and order, and the universe must have had a cause. Extremely general, universal attributes going to a particular conclusion. Thus, the God of the Bible exists? No, you can't do that. That is a huge leap in logic. The best you can do is say that there must be something in reality that exhibits structure and order, and there must be a reason for the Big Bang. So you see the difference? When I'm talking about God and I'm saying that God does not exist, I'm picking the very specific attributes of that God. They are not doing that. They are going from generalities, universals, to the conclusion that the God of the Bible exists. No, you can't do that. There's so, there are so many different philosophies and religions and whatnot that could put the cause of those things as something very, very different. Now, of course, in our system, I want to emphasize that our system is a meta-rationalist system. So we base our system on reason and also incorporate other powerful experiences like intuition and phenomenological experience. And we come to an understanding of reality through reason, not through faith, through understanding existence in a way where it is coherent. And we don't have to rely on these crazy outdated beliefs. So anyway, I've gone on much too long. I hope you enjoyed that, my friends. I have so many more videos. Go check them out. Check out that video I said 100% proof that God does not exist. Check it out. That's a good one. We have more videos coming out. And remember, if you enjoy my work, please hit like and subscribe and consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. You'll get access to all our members only videos, a new members only video every single week. Today we are talking about, is social media destroying your mind? We're talking about digital addiction. So if you support on any tier on Patreon or tier 2 or higher on YouTube, you get access to all that. The join button is the URL is right over here. And hey, also, look, I always want to remind you, never feel obligated to support monetarily. You don't have to. Seriously. Only do so if you feel good about it and you want to. There are plenty of free ways you can support my work by liking and sharing and subscribing and all that. I do want to shout out those who do support. I appreciate it very much. Thank you to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Enki, Nuselina, Paul, Eric, Masam, Ryan, Christopher, and everyone else. Thank you very much.